This week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed it as historic. Saudi Arabia's decision to let Air India use its airspace on its New Delhi to Tel Aviv route. That's the first time it has ever allowed a flyover for any Israel-bound flights. Less pleased was El Al, Israel's national carrier, which is still not allowed to use Saudi airspace. Now the airline has filed a suit to the Israeli High Court of Justice against the Israeli government. They are arguing that by allowing Air India unfair advantages, it is violating both its own rules in Israel and international aviation regulations. Daniel Stapleton is the Director of International Affairs for El Al Airlines. He's here with us. Thank you, Daniel, for being here. This is a sort of tough-to-believe situation where you have an Israeli national airliner suing the Israeli government for a decision in Saudi Arabia. What are you asking for exactly?
Well, unfortunately, as you mentioned, we filed today a petition to the High Court of Israel, and this is because of this permit that was given to Air India to overfly Saudi Arabia when this exact route is blocked for El Al. And our legal claims are very straightforward and clear. Number one, by giving this permit, the Israeli government has turned away from an obligating commitment to El Al that was given several times to keep for the Israeli aviation industry to keep a fair and equal opportunity for all the airlines, all Israeli airlines. And this commitment was made during the privatization process, leading up to 2004 when we became private. And that was the first time that we believe that the government is going against this act. Secondly, in the international, you mentioned it before, in the international aviation industry, according to the Chicago Convention that is recognized by the International Civil Aviation Organization, it's all about reciprocity, it's all about equal and fair opportunities, and this has also been violated. And thirdly, and the last claim we're making is on the bilateral between Israel and India in the air service agreement. It's mentioned very clearly also that the basic principle in aviation is equal and fair opportunities, and we cannot operate when we are blocked and our competitors have a free access.
Now, I know you brought some maps to illustrate what exactly we're talking about unfair advantages, both in this and on other routes.
Sure.
Right, now we're going to be taking a look at them. Now here we could see that Saudi airspace there.
Yeah, what you see here on the map, I think you should be focusing on the black spots on the map. These are all the countries that we do not have permits to use their airspace or overfly these countries. And you actually see that Israel is a geopolitical island. Now, through this map, you can understand that it's not only the issue of India. We're worried mostly about this decision to give this permit, that this is precedent to additional airlines and carriers that will fly in on routes that we're forbidden to fly through. And it's not only to the Far East, as you see, it's also to South America.
I just want to point out, so Air India can actually go straight like this in the red route.
And we're on the green.
And you're the green. What is that, about 2 hours?
It's a 2-hour difference. If you take just the specific route from Mumbai, it's a 2-hour difference. Approximately 2 hours to Delhi.
Right.
To Singapore, it would be 3 hours.
I want to ask you, Daniel, I was in touch with people at Air India and their head of PR throughout this, as this story broke, and everybody here in the Middle East was pretty surprised to hear that Saudi Arabia was set to allow this. They had to reach out directly to Saudi Arabia. That's who they got the confirmation from initially, the airline versus the country. Obviously, Israel doesn't have open ties with Saudi Arabia, but has El Al considered or reached out in some way to ask for the same permissions directly?
Well, this is, in our view, this is the position of the Israeli government. The Israeli Civil Aviation, the Ministry of Transportation, the Prime Minister's office, of course, we're welcoming Air India to fly in and to compete against El Al. The issue is the route itself. And according to our opinion, the Israel government has all the right to condition Air India's flying into Tel Aviv on the same route that El Al is flying.
So it's not up to El Al as an airline to ask for this from Saudi Arabia. You wouldn't do that.
This is strictly the government of Israel's responsibility.
Daniel, what do you exactly? You're not going to change the Saudi Arabian government policy. What do you want from the government of Israel? Compensation? You want them to force India to cancel its routes?
If you can show the map again, I think to assess the economical damage that will be implemented from airlines flying in on routes that we cannot compete in this arena, It's similar to having a 100-meter dash race where one competitor is in the 50-meter mark and the other one is in the starting point. You cannot compete. So it's very hard to assess the damage, not only the direct damage of one line, but the entire network. And for that reason, we're not interested in compensation. We don't want to be subsidized by the government.
So what do you
want to compete fairly. And what we're saying is very, very clearly, if you allow if you want to allow another airline to fly in on a specific route, we have to have the same rights. Without having these rights, all airlines fly in on the same route.
If that doesn't happen, if Israel or Saudi Arabia, all the other bodies that really have a link to this decision don't make that happen, and Israel stops the route from Air India, isn't that hurting the consumer in the end?
They don't have to stop the route from Air India. They have to condition the route that will be in the same route that El Al is flying. Otherwise,
which is not the shorter route through Saudi Arabia.
But otherwise, it's suffocating the Israeli aviation industry.
I'm gathering, instead of having a Prime Minister Netanyahu just hailing decision and say this is historic, you want him to say, but no, you Saudi Arabia have to also allow our airline to fly through.
Absolutely. Can you imagine President Trump allowing British Airways to fly directly to New York over the Atlantic, and at the same time agreeing that the American airlines will fly with a detour around Africa? Would that be in any way considerable? This is unheard of in the industry, and we cannot accept it. We have responsibility to our airline, to our clients, to our passengers, of course, to our employees. 6,000 employees. We have a commitment, and we have responsibilities. We cannot accept this type of discrimination.
There is a lot of talk, there has been recently, about a closening of ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia behind the scenes. Was El Al caught completely off guard when this was announced? What was the reaction?
Completely off guard. We, by the way, in El Al, of course, we are happy, and we're celebrating together with any normalization or any type of agreement with any of our neighboring countries. That's not the issue. The issue is only that under these terms, we cannot compete. And if you just take our Minister of Tourism's statements in the inaugural flight of Air India, he mentioned that not only that we're hedging the Air India flights from Delhi, but proactively we're working to bring other carriers on the same route. And again, this suffocates any option for El Al to expand in the future, any option of El Al to compete in a fair and equal opportunity. And that's all we're asking for. We're not asking for anything else. We're asking to, like any other airline, to compete fairly.
All right. The ultimate meeting between politics and economics, we see in this case in geopolitics, as you said. Daniel Stapleton, thanks very much for being here.